Old boombox to the left, new one on the right. Of course, that's from your perspective, not mine. If I only had batteries for these things. Is it live, or is it Dino Penguins? Hello everybody, Sparkster1701 here, and we're continuing our look at the Legacy Evolution line of Transformer toys by taking a look at a special one. This is Twincast and his little sidekick, Rewind. Now, of course, some of you are probably assuming that it is just a simple redeco of a previous character, since after all, he is a repaint of Blaster. And of course, this is the Blaster from Kingdom and Legacy. And of course, he came with Eject. But there's a little bit more to the story about Twincast than just being a simple repaint of the figure. In the Japanese series, The Headmasters, which was a series that was not done here in the United States, it showed off a little bit more of the stakes between the rivalry between Blaster and Soundwave. The two of them were bitter rivals in the Japanese series, and they had a duel that did result in both of them dying. Blaster would succumb to his wounds, while Soundwave would end up violently exploding from his wounds. Soundwave's minions were able to recover a fair amount of his pieces, most importantly, though, his head. And Galvatron had him rebuilt using the technology on the planet Master and created him into Sound Blaster. The Autobots used similar technology and were able to bring Blaster back from the dead, but he was brought back as Twincast. In Japan, when these toys originally came out in 1987, they were more than just a simple repaint of Blaster and Soundwave. They were also redesigned so that their chest cavities could now hold 2 cassette figures. And even more so, to go along with that, both of them had some translucent red plastic on the front of the cassette door. Those would line up with special spots placed on the new cassette figures that were being released at that time, and it would show schematics for Fortress Maximus or Scorponok, basically showing off weak points for the city-sized Transformers. So, all in all, they did get a much better gimmick and improved upon the original back in the day. Unfortunately for this, yeah, it's just a simple repaint. But there is a slight retooling to it. I mean, let's get them both up here a little closer, and you can see Blaster kind of has something of a neutral or serious face on him, whereas Twincast here looks a little more playful. Plus, they also seem to have the right eye appears to be in sort of more of a squint look, with the left one being more open. So, kind of almost like Twincast here is in the middle of a wink. But as we also pointed out, the original Twincast had a trans red piece on his cassette door, and that's been replicated to a degree here on this new version. Since, as you can see, Blaster had basically a standard trans blue one. It's not coming up too clearly here on the camera due to the light. But if we open it up, you can see right here at the top, it's coming in more at a trans blue color. Then at any rate, we'll set them aside and we'll talk a little bit now about Rewind here. Yes, he is basically just a simple repaint of Eject, but that's a tradition, because in the Generation 1 era, Rewind and Eject were basically paint-swapped versions of each other. Rewind in the Generation 1 continuity was an archivist. So he basically kept track of all sorts of data, no matter how important or irrelevant it was. He was also apparently known at the Autobot bases that he was stationed at for throwing trivia nights. So he'd probably get along well with a lot of the pubs in various parts of the world having a trivia night contest. The only problem is that Rewind's so obsessed with it, he often wants to throw out trivia games when Autobots have more pressing work on their minds. There, at any rate, we'll take a look here at Rewind's articulation, because we are going to show how he fits in the cassette door. Well, we will in a second. We got to charge the camera a bit. Alright, let's take a look here at Rewind's articulation, and since he's the same mold as Eject, he'll have the same articulation. The head can be turned from side to side, and it is on a small separate ball joint, so it will rock up and down a little. And yeah, that is somewhat separate, not quite separate from the one that's used to transform him. His arms can stretch out to the side about so far, and they do rotate at the shoulder all the way around. You can bend his arm at the elbow 90 degrees, and he does have a swivel at the bicep. So, Rewind does have G.I. Joe battle grip, very slightly. He cannot be twisted at the hips because he doesn't have articulation there. He does have a thigh cut, so you can adjust his legs at the thigh. You can raise his leg up the hip 90 degrees, and you can bend his leg at the knee a little more than 90 degrees. So now to transform Rewind, it's a very simple, small process. We start by turning his head around to face the other way, and then we fold it down into his back. We bring his arms out to the side, and we will rotate them at the biceps so that these circular parts are facing us now. And then we can bend them up at the elbow and lock them into place. His legs, you twist it, turn them at the hip. Well, turn them at the leg, at the thigh cut, so that they're facing away from each other. And then you will bring them up and then fold them against the body. And then now he's in cassette mode. And Twincast, like Blaster, has a set of false buttons here. Normally the play button is this one over here. The eject button, rather, is the button over here, but they're all set up the same, so you just push in any of them, and in he goes. If you got him in far enough, he will close up and be sealed off entirely. Pretty good. And of course, as you see, they did design the one finger so that way you could, if you wanted to, pose Twincast in a way that he's going to press the button. But that's for your own amusement. Now, Twincast's other accessory, of course, is his gun. And of course, since this toy is a repaint of Blaster, it is the exact same gun that came with Blaster. Let me get Blasters off here, and this one here is Blaster's, and this one is Twincast's. And as you can clearly see, they are exactly the same. So, Hasbro went cheap on this. Twincast's original gun was red, I believe, so that would have been nice, but hey, Hasbro spent all the money on the paint and changing the face a little bit, so I guess we should be grateful for that. Now we'll take a look at Twincast's articulation, and since he's basically a repaint of Blaster, he'll have the same articulation. You can turn his head from side to side, and it is on a ball joint, so it will rock up and down a bit. The arms can be raised out about so far, and they do rotate at the shoulder all the way. You can bend his arm at the elbow a little more than 90 degrees. And he does have a swivel at the bicep, so he also has G.I. Joe battle grip. You can twist him at the hips, which is fitting, because you'd expect Twincast to have some dance moves going for him. You can spread his legs apart into a full splits. You could do that with Rewind as well. Just realized I didn't show that. He does have a thigh cut, so you can definitely twist his legs about like that. You can raise his legs at the hip 90 degrees, and you can bend his leg at the knee 90 degrees. So all in all, he has very good articulation. Alrighty, we'll transform Twincast now, and it's a relatively simple process. We'll start by turning him around. We open up this panel here on his back. I want you to turn the head all the way around and then fold it down inside. And then just close it up like that. Then we'll come here. You'll bring his arms up to the side like so. Rotate them at the bicep so that they've been turned 180 degrees. You then fold the hands onto the forearms, and then you'll fold the forearms up against the arm. And this one over here, do the same thing. And then we'll rest his arms down at the side. Come down here to his legs. You fold up the feet. And then these little speakers here on his legs, you should be able to push in on a side and spin them around so that the grill side is showing. Now we're turning him around, then we can twist him around at the hip. So now we're looking this side. Spread his legs open a bit, because we're going to go into these blue partitions here. Fold them out, and then inside each one of them is another bit of blue plastic that you want to fold up as well. Then you're going to take his legs, and we're going to turn them at the thigh so that the excess blue plastic is facing outwards. Come up here and flip this piece up at his hip for a moment. And then have him do a split. You'll see there's a little bit of black plastic protruding there. And that should go right into the gap in his forearms. It's basically going to connect to a hole that's right there on the forearm. But of course, since it's at an angle you really can't see, lining it up is a pain in the you-know-what. There we go. Once you've got his legs done up like that, the hip piece here has a couple of holes in the side, and they should line up with these posts here on the legs. So just snap that into place. They don't snap in the best, but once you've got it in, then you're going to take the legs one at a time and fold it up to cover the arms. And things should line up. You may have to make minor adjustments to the arms and the hands to get it to go in. Sometimes it's a little stiff. There we go. And there we are. Then once we've done that, we come back here to the back side. These two black bars should be able to pop up. You fold them up, and then turn them to the front and connect them, and they will form the carry handle. And there you have it. Twincast is transformed into a boombox. It was known by a few other names back at that time, but in this culturally and politically correct environment that we live in right now, we're not going to use those terms. So we're just going to call it a straight-up boombox, which is how he was in the 1980s. And of course, just like with Blaster, the rifle has a hole on the one side of the hand grip, and that will line up with a post here on the back side, so you can plug the gun in and you've got storage. And of course, here is the Kingdom version of Blaster right next to it for comparison's sake. So now we get to my thoughts. Well, it is good to see that they brought in a character that isn't quite as well known to the American audience. But of course, years ago when they brought in Sound Blaster, I was kind of hoping that Twincast would be an eventual character to be brought into it. Being somebody that is one that knows a bit of the history of the character, and I have seen the Headmasters anime. It was released to a more general audience a few years back. And I'm sure if you search the internet hard enough, you will be able to find it. Whether to watch it on the internet or to even buy the DVDs. The only thing that's really a disappointing thing about the release of Twincast is the fact that he is basically a straight-up repaint of Blaster from the Kingdom and Legacy lines. So that is a little disappointing, but not entirely unexpected. The only thing that's really disappointing is the fact that we're not getting any other cassette figures. I mean, Soundwave had quite a few of them available during his run when he was released back during the Siege line. Even though he didn't become the cassette recorder, he still got a lot of his minions. But unfortunately, Blaster and Twincast are kind of getting the short end of the deal here, since there hasn't been any word that Hasbro's going to make any more of them. And that's a shame, because I would have liked to have seen some more of the Japanese characters be brought over. It's nice to see those that, at the time when they were originally released, were an exclusive elsewhere in the world. But now, more of the die-hard fans can have the means of getting one to be in their collection, and not feel that we've got to spend all of our life savings on a vintage toy. At any rate, that's my review of the Legacy Evolution version of Twincast and Rewind. I hope you all enjoyed it. And please do remember that if you like the content we feature on this channel, please remember to like, share, comment, and subscribe. This is Sparkster1701 saying I will catch you all later.